trustees, but I'll say no more about that, but we'll get on with the evening. We've got William McGurk and Peter McMillan will be setting the scene about J M Barrie, Peter Pan and Dumfries. William.
Thank you. Nearly 700 years ago, round about 1330, in the crypt of the former Grey Friars Monastery, which occupies the Friars Venel site. During its 700-year history, the Academy, I think, has produced a number of distinguished secondary schools in Scotland, Glasgow Academy and later Forfar Academy, before coming to Dumfries Academy, where he actually spent his sort of basically longer sort of period of time. Part of the reason why, as a schoolboy, he was moved about from place to place was that he was under the guardianship of his elder brother, who himself was a teacher, I think a teacher of classics, but later took on a more important job as a member of the HM Inspectorate, and their job was to obviously go around schools in different parts of the country and inspect the standards that they still exist today. And when his brother was appointed an inspector in the Dumfries area, J M Barrie came along with his elder brother and elder sister, who acted as a sort of a housekeeper for the family, and they moved down to Dumfries. As I said, his elder brother Alexander, and they stayed initially in Irvine Street, just across the road there. It was his stay in Irvine Street across the road that first brought him into contact with the Moat Brae house. He himself wrote that the two sights he saw every morning when he got up and when he left the house, obviously he came across the road and in front of him was Dumfries Academy, and obviously to the left-hand side was Moat Brae. And he writes a lot about this house and of course about this new school that he'd attended. And it was during his time in the school, in the first few days that he came to the school, that he came across James Gordon, who actually at that time in the 1870s owned the Moat Brae house. And it was this connection with these two Gordon boys, because there was Hal, the younger brother, as well, that in a sense started J M Barrie on his road towards, of course, his most famous book, his most famous work, Peter Pan. Barrie himself described his very first meeting with Stuart many years later. He wrote, "When I came to the Academy, I intended to work hard, and I would have probably worked hard had it not been for another boy who led me astray." Some of these, if anybody's really looking for evidence that it was his connection with Dumfries Academy, it was his connection with Moat Brae that began Barrie on the road to Peter Pan. I think this state by 1924 to collect his freedom of Dumfries. Luckily, he did donate this to the school, and here it is here, which he was presented on the 11th day of December 1924 by the town of Dumfries. As I said, he allowed the Academy to retain it, and of course when it was presented to him, it wasn't in this frame. It had come rolled up in this very beautiful silver casket that was presented to him by the town council, with of course St Michael, sort of linked to the Dumfries Academy. Really is a big influence in later the work that's become Peter Pan, and I think it is always really important that Moat Brae is preserved, and it's preserved in the memory of Dumfries, not Dumfries, J M Barrie, his time in the Academy, and I think there is a real strong connection between that place and what Barrie did in his later life. So I hope that's given you a sort of little taste of his time in the Dumfries Academy, and perhaps has given you some further information about his time here. Thank you very much.
Just in case he said the same thing there, but he didn't. He says it only about Dumfries. So therefore he pins the birth of Peter Pan here, and that is something that obviously we should make use of. Okay, as well as that, history is very important to us. And Dumfries, as we know, is in a kind of state where it's looking for an identity as a town, no longer a market town, perhaps a history town sort of thing, and people have talked about Burns connections and its connections to Robert Bruce, and Barrie kind of fits in with that as well. The thing about history, however, is I think history kind of draws a sort of line under things. And this is my own personal view. I mean, I don't know what actual use is going to be made of Moat Brae House and Moat Brae Garden and so on. That's up to our folk. But it seems to me that it would be a bit depressing if we came back here in 20 years' time and found the J M Barrie experience sort of in Moat Brae House as a kind of just a simple historical sort of thing. Because the thing about Barrie that makes Barrie different from Burns, I think, is that Burns appeared here as a fully fledged creative imagination. He arrived here as a poet, and it's great that he wrote such brilliant stuff in Dumfries and he collected all these songs and poems in Dumfries. But in Barrie we've got a different thing, because in Barrie we have got the birth of a world-class creative imagination here in Dumfries. Right, it's born here, this creative impulse has been born here in a way that it wasn't with Burns. And I think that's an important thing to commemorate when we're thinking about the functions of Moat Brae Garden and Moat Brae House. And perhaps we shouldn't just be thinking about a museum, although museums are very important, obviously, and J M Barrie's place here is very important and all the rest of it. But perhaps we should be thinking about a way of commemorating J M Barrie that also commemorates the creative imagination itself. We know, of course, I mean, Willie's been down this road, so we'll not talk about it again, but we know he says that Peter Pan was born here in Moat Brae Gardens. He says it definitively. It's not as if he's saying it to all the people. I looked at it, people, partly organised by the DGAA, the Dumfries and Galloway Arts Association, and supported by the Moat Brae Trust, and I would hope that you will all turn up here. There are some invitations here. Please feel free to take one, and as I say, there will be readings that particular night at 7 o'clock, as well as some light refreshments, and you can hear what amazing sort of work comes out of this. But I wonder if, Zach, would you like to come and read one of the examples here?
A line I had drawn, a map of where I'm going, and sketches of where I've been. A paper hat I made bears the letters in my name, yet it covers the calligraphy in my brain. The further I walked, the further I travelled, into the unknown unknown. The colours of crimson and the shriek of crows just painted a black line on my handcrafted iridescent clothes. I drew a breath after that. I drew a breath that only I could ever breathe, and I noticed a change in my name. I was lost. Matter over mind, it stole my hat, and my plans, and everything at that. Paint smeared on my lips, as if it were a chocolate muddy lipstick. Then my line was crooked, a tear in my map. If only I had the courage to ever look back.
How do you think the meeting went tonight, Roger?
I thought it was absolutely splendid. The scene was very well set by the teachers from the Academy. I thought it was interesting Hugh Macmillan's talk about inspiration and literature and not just concentrating on the bricks and mortar and the garden. I thought that was really very interesting. And then of course Patrick gave us a very good, clear presentation, and we now know where we are coming from, we know what we've got to do, and I think we have a plan that will work for the long-term future of the town and the house and the garden. So we want now to get the council and the people of Dumfries right behind us, and when we can have a really successful project.
That's great, sir. Thank you very much.